They say the world slows down right before a car crash. They're right. I still remember the screech of the tires, the glint of the sun in my eyes, and the final jarring slam that knocked every thought clean out of my head. There was no pain, not at first. Just confusion. Then nothing. Then darkness. But not the kind of darkness where you don't exist. No, this one had sound. People talking. Machines beeping. Voices calling my name. Doctors. Nurses. And eventually her. My wife. Emily. The woman I thought I'd grow old with. The woman I gave everything to. She sat beside my bed and held my hand. I felt it vaguely, like a feather brushing my skin from inside a dream. Her voice came next. Strong at first. Loving. I'm right here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to get through this. Promise. God, how I wanted to respond. My brain screamed to move, to squeeze her hand. But nothing came. Not a flicker of a finger. Not a groan. Not even an eye twitch. Just stillness. I don't know how long I lay there like that. Days probably. Could have been weeks. Time had no shape. It oozed around me like molasses. First, her voice was everything. She told me stories, funny ones. Reminded me of the time I got sunburned at her parents' barbecue, or how I tried, and failed, to put together IKEA furniture without the manual. She made me feel like I was still alive. But something changed. Slowly. Subtly. The tone in her voice wasn't the same after a while. The tremble was gone. So was the desperation. She still said the right things, but I could tell she wasn't feeling them anymore. I couldn't explain it. It's just something you know, even when you're trapped inside your own head. Still, I didn't panic. She said she'd hired a private investigator, someone named Carson, to look into the crash. Said something wasn't right, that I didn't usually take that route home from work, that the brakes didn't fail by accident. She told me she loved me for believing in her instincts. That part stayed with me. I clung to it, because hope was all I had. I listened to her go on about Carson a lot, how persistent he was, how he'd found strange inconsistencies in the accident report, how the cop who filed it had since been suspended for corruption. It made me think, maybe I wasn't crazy, maybe I'd been set up, maybe Carson would save me. But slowly, a chill settled in the room, like invisible frost growing under the surface. Emily's visits grew shorter, less frequent. She stopped reading to me. Then one day, everything changed. I heard a different voice in the room. Sharp, clipped, sarcastic. It was her mother. I couldn't see her, but I knew that tone. Marjorie never liked me. Too blue-collar, she used to say. I never heard that from her lips, but Emily had let it slip once in bed. I don't know what to do, Emily whispered. Her voice was low, urgent. Don't do anything, dear, Marjorie said. You got what you wanted, didn't you? My breath, what little of it I could feel, froze in my chest. I didn't want this, Emily hissed. Not like this. I wanted to feel again. What you felt was Carson, Marjorie said with a smirk in her voice. And don't pretend you regret it. You told me how he looked at you, how he made you feel like a real woman. Emily didn't respond for a long time. Then she whispered, he came over that night to drop off the photos from the crash. I answered the door in my robe. I didn't plan to. You planned everything, her mother said, chuckling. You met him in your stockings. That's not an accident. I wanted to scream. I wanted to die. Instead, I lay there, silent, motionless. Every word they spoke branding itself into the inside of my skull. Mom, Emily said quietly. If he wakes up. He won't, Marjorie said coldly. And if he does, we'll make sure he forgets. Something inside me broke. But at the same time, something else started to grow. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder. Something patient. I was awake now. More than I'd ever been. They thought I was nothing but a lifeless lump in a bed. They thought I was a prisoner in my body. But they had no idea. I heard everything. And I would remember it all. They always talk about ghosts haunting the living. But what they don't tell you is that it goes both ways. We, the broken ones, the silenced ones, the ones caught in the web of our own shattered bodies, we haunt the living too. From hospital beds. From deep within dreams that feel like coffins. And I haunted her. I haunted Emily. She just didn't know it yet. Because I heard everything. The night it happened. The night she crossed the line from mourning to betrayal. I was lying in this sterile bed, heart beating, lungs hissing, monitors singing their mechanical lullaby. But my mind My mind was with her. I remember it like I'd been there, because she told me, not to my face, of course, but to her mother, to herself, in her diary. Yes, she read it out loud to me once, thinking I couldn't hear. And I pieced it together. All of it. Started 3 weeks after the accident. Emily was still in that first wave of grief. Broken mascara, wine stains on the couch, tear-blotched cheeks. Carson had come by the house after digging up some early findings. A traffic camera had caught a suspicious vehicle tailing mine a mile before the crash site. There were questions about brake tampering. Emily let him in. He was taller than me, broad shoulders, square jaw, the kind of man who doesn't say much, just watches, listens. Quiet danger. She offered him coffee. He declined. I have to get back to the office, he said, standing stiff in the hallway, but she didn't let him leave. You've been working hard, she said, her voice soft. You sure you won't stay just a little while? I feel safe when you're here. Carson hesitated, maybe out of professionalism, maybe because he knew where the lines were, but Emily had already decided to cross them. She wore a loose white shirt, one of mine, bare legs, bare feet, a look so intimate it should have hurt him to see it. But I guess it didn't. I guess it invited him. She sat on the couch and patted the space beside her. He didn't move, so she stood up, slowly, and walked over to him, looked up at him, eyes wide with pain. And then, she did the thing that broke whatever part of me still believed in her. She unbuttoned her shirt. 1, 2, 3. And let it fall from her shoulders like it weighed too much to carry anymore. Underneath, she wore black lace, a matching set I'd bought her on our anniversary. She said she'd save it for a special night. Apparently, that night came without me. She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. Do you know what it feels like to watch the man you love fall into darkness? To not know if he'll ever come back? Carson didn't answer. He didn't have to. His hands moved to her waist. I just need to feel something, she breathed. Her mouth found his, and they kissed like they were drowning in each other. Like grief and lust had collided inside them like crashing cars. They didn't make it to the bedroom. They didn't need to. The living room, our living room, was enough. The same spot where she and I had danced barefoot to old Springsteen records. Where we decorated our first Christmas tree. Where we fought over dumb things like paint colors and pizza toppings. That was where she gave herself to someone else. Where she betrayed me. Where she forgot I ever existed, if only for a moment. She called it a mistake later. Told herself she was vulnerable. That she didn't mean for it to go that far. But she kept doing it. Night after night. She made him dinner. Wore silk robes. Lit candles. Played our playlist. Replaced our life with something new. Something convenient. And she didn't stop him. She didn't stop herself. She just buried me a little deeper each time. She thought I couldn't feel it. She thought I was gone. But I was there, lying in a white-walled room with tubes in my nose and wires in my chest. Feeling the ache of her absence not as pain, but as pure betrayal. I wasn't dead, but she acted like I was. And the worst part? She didn't even cry afterward. No guilt, no hesitation. She just whispered to Carson in the dark, I wish I'd met you first. My heart didn't stop, but something inside it did. Something important, something human. They always said Marjorie had a tongue like a whip. Sharp, unforgiving, cold. She dressed like a queen and judged like a god. A suburban goddess with pearl earrings and pursed lips. I used to think she didn't approve of me because I wasn't her class. But now I understand. She never approved of anything that didn't orbit her. She didn't raise a daughter. She raised a mirror. And on that quiet afternoon in my hospital room, when I heard Emily and Marjorie enter together, I knew a storm was coming. The door opened, and I heard the familiar click of Marjorie's heels on the tile. Emily's soft footsteps followed like a ghost. Marjorie was the first to speak. I told you not to let your feelings get tangled in your underwear, Emily. My wife didn't respond right away. I imagined her clutching her purse, eyes avoiding her mother's, guilt heavy on her shoulders. But not enough to break her. You told me I deserved better, Emily whispered. I said you deserved more, Marjorie snapped. More passion, more attention, more power. I didn't say to throw yourself like a stray dog at the first man with a jawline and a leather coat. He understands me, Emily said, voice trembling. Carson listens. He doesn't just nod while staring at a football game. He doesn't come home reeking of lawnmower fuel. He sees me. My chest would have tightened if it could. Marjorie scoffed. You mean he sleeps with you and tells you you're pretty? Is that your idea of love now? I loved my husband, Emily said, her voice cracking. I still love him. Then why did you screw another man on the couch where he used to fall asleep holding your hand? Marjorie snapped. A long silence followed. Then Emily sat down. I heard the chair creak beneath her. She was close to me. I could feel her presence. I didn't mean for it to happen. You meant for it to continue, her mother said coldly. He made me feel alive, Emily whispered. After the crash, I started waking up every morning to silence. Just the sound of the fridge humming and the bed being too cold. I sat in that living room crying until the carpet was soaked. And I realized, I didn't even know the man I was crying for. A pause. Then she added, almost in a whisper, I think I married someone because I wanted to be rescued. And once I wasn't broken anymore, I didn't know what we had left. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake up just to ask her, was all of it a lie? Every kiss? Every stupid little love note? Every plan we ever made? But I was silent, trapped. My body didn't belong to me anymore. Marjorie's voice cut through the stillness like a scalpel. You're rationalizing betrayal, Emily. You always were good at rewriting your own stories. But this time, you're not the only one involved. She paused, then continued, even lower, almost a hiss. You gave up the power you had. That man, Carson, is an employee, not a lover. You seduced him like some desperate soap opera widow. And now you're playing house while your husband lies in a bed breathing through a tube. I didn't plan it, Emily snapped. It happened. That excuse is for teenagers and politicians, Marjorie snapped back. You want a clean life? You clean this mess up. Fast. Emily stood. I could hear the motion, her bracelet jangling as she moved. I'm not you, Mom. I can't pretend I'm not falling apart. Marjorie's voice softened, but it turned even colder. No, you're not me. I would have never let a man see me that weak. Emily exhaled. He might not wake up. You know that, right? Another pause. I know, Marjorie said calmly. And if he does, you better hope he remembers nothing. Because if he does... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I already knew how it would end. Because I did remember. Every second. Every moan she let out in another man's arms. Every fake word of devotion spoken beside my unconscious body. Every conversation like this one. And the only thing keeping me sane was the knowledge that I was awake inside. And that one day I'd open my eyes. And they would all pay. They say guilt leaves a smell behind. Does not sweat. Does not fear. It's rotting conscience. I'd never seen Carson with my own eyes. But I knew him. I'd memorized the timbre of his voice, the cadence of his footsteps, the weight in his sighs. And when he entered my hospital room alone one rainy Thursday evening, I recognized what had changed in him. He had started to smell like guilt. The door clicked shut behind him. I heard the shuffle of his boots. He stood at the foot of my bed for a long time, silent, watching me. I imagined what he saw. A man in his early 30s, tubes in his nose, face pale, beard creeping in, unblinking eyes closed to the world, machines keeping me breathing, feeding me, draining me. I was a hollowed-out version of myself. And yet, somehow, I still made him uncomfortable. He pulled up the chair beside me, sat down with a groan. You don't know me, he said quietly. But I know you. I've read your file. I've seen pictures of you and Emily, the house, the wedding photos. He paused. I've been sleeping with your wife. There it was. Just like that. Not a whisper. Not a confession to God. He said it to me. A man he believed couldn't hear a damn thing. You probably hate me? He went on, rubbing the back of his neck. I would. Hell, I do. I hate myself. I wasn't hired to touch her. I was hired to protect her. To help her. He let out a bitter laugh. But she didn't want help. She wanted escape. She wanted something wild. Something that felt dangerous. And I gave it to her like a damn fool. He stood up suddenly. Began pacing. She's not what she seems. That soft voice? That helpless act? It's a mask. She knew what she was doing the night she opened the door in that robe. The way she looked at me. Like I was the only air she could breathe. I told myself it was grief. That she needed comfort. But it wasn't. He stopped beside my bed. Leaned close. It was control. There was silence after that. But not the comfortable kind. The kind that wraps its fingers around your throat. Then he did something that made my soul scream. He took my hand, held it like it was his to hold. "I don't know if you're in there," he whispered. "But if you are, I'm sorry." Sorry? He didn't get to be sorry. Not yet. Not while his fingerprints were still warm on my wife's skin. Not while the ink on the betrayal still bled through my bones. Then came the worst part. His voice cracked. A single, helpless breath escaped his throat. "I think I love her." The walls of my mind shook. Love? He dared to speak that word beside the body of the man he helped erase? He dropped my hand like it burned him. And maybe it did. Maybe some part of me, buried deep, still remembered rage. Still remembered pride. Still remembered the taste of vengeance waiting in my mouth like blood on a bitten tongue. He stood in silence for a moment longer, then walked to the door. But just before he left, he whispered, "She said she dreamed you'd never wake up." I told her she shouldn't say that. Not out loud. Then he left, and the door clicked shut. I lay there in my bed, silent, still, unmoving. But inside, something was stirring. The man who loved Emily? He was gone. The boy who brought her daisies from the side of the road? Dead. But the part of me that had been born in that twisted wreck of metal and fire? That part was wide awake. Watching, waiting, and planning. They say time heals everything. But whoever said that never spent months inside a dying body, listening to the people they loved plot a world without them. Time doesn't heal. Time rots. And Emily was beginning to rot right along with me. She came alone that evening. I recognized her perfume before she even spoke. Something soft and sweet. The one she used to save for date nights, back when I meant something. The scent was fainter now. Like a memory. Like a ghost. She pulled the chair close to my bedside and sat down with a heavy sigh. Then silence. I could almost hear her thoughts unraveling. Finally, she spoke. "You're still in there, aren't you?" she whispered. My heart monitor didn't spike. My breathing machine didn't hiccup. But my soul flinched, because I knew what was coming. She didn't wait for an answer. She just laughed bitterly under her breath and said, "Of course you are. You always listened more than you talked." She stood up, pacing. Her voice cracked, but not with grief. With guilt. "I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face the night before the crash. You kissed me on the forehead. Said you'd be home by 6. You smiled." She paused. A drawer opened, the one next to the hospital bed. I heard something metallic. Scissors? No, tweezers. She always fidgeted when she was nervous. "I keep thinking you'll open your eyes and look at me," she said. "And you'll know, just from the way I breathe. From the way I blink too long. You'll know I let someone else hold me while you were fighting to stay alive." She moved closer. I could feel her breath on my cheek. I never meant to fall for him. It just happened. Like slipping on ice. Like stepping into traffic. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Like your accident." I would have gasped if I could. What did she mean? Was she saying what I thought she was? "I didn't plan it," she said quickly, as if defending herself against a judge. But I knew. The car was acting strange. I saw the leak days before. I told myself it was fine. That you'd handle it. That it wasn't my job to tell you. She backed away, pacing faster now, nearly manic. And then the crash happened. And the doctors said brain damage, maybe permanent, maybe not. And suddenly, it was quiet. A sob tore from her throat. I waited. I cried. I prayed. But somewhere deep inside me, I felt relieved. And I hated myself for it. A beat of silence. Then came the most devastating thing I've ever heard. "I don't want you to wake up." My heart didn't stop. But my hope did. She walked back to the bedside. I felt her hand brush my forehead. The same fingers that once laced through mine during thunderstorms were now trembling above me like vultures circling. "Carson says he's falling for me," she whispered. "And I want to say it back. I do. But sometimes I look at you and I feel like you're watching me. Like you know. I do. I know everything." Suddenly she slammed her palm against the metal rail of the bed. It echoed through the room like a gunshot. "I didn't mean to become this," she said through clenched teeth. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. But I'm still young. I'm still breathing. Why should I bury myself alive for someone who might never come back?" Her next words came out like venom. "I wish you just died in that crash." The silence that followed was colder than any grave. Then the door creaked open. Her mother, Marjorie. "I told you not to come here alone," she said flatly. Emily wiped her face and turned toward her. I had to see him. Marjorie's heels clicked against the tile as she entered. What did you say to him? Emily's voice hardened. The truth. Marjorie sighed, pulled something from her purse. A bottle. The sound of pills shaking inside. Here, she said. Take these tonight. You need sleep. I don't need drugs, Mom. I need peace. You'll get neither until he's either dead or brain dead. Emily didn't answer. Marjorie leaned over me. They say hearing is the last thing to go. If he's still in there, he's probably judging you. She smiled. But don't worry, darling. If he wakes up, we'll take care of it. They left together. The door clicked shut, and the only sound left in the room was the slow, steady beep of a man waiting to return. I wasn't going to stay in this bed forever, and when I rose, I'd show them both what real judgment looks like. Me in a coma moves like breath on a mirror. Slow, fragile, easy to miss, but not when you're listening, not when you're waiting. For weeks now, I'd memorized every voice that dared speak in my presence. The doctor who muttered clinical hopelessness. The nurse who changed my sheets while humming Adele. Emily weaving lies into lullabies. Her mother, lacing poison into every syllable. Carson, confusing lust with love and guilt with grace. They thought I was asleep, but I was awake inside. And then one day, I heard a voice I hadn't expected. A man, older, shaky, timid. He cleared his throat before speaking. Hey, I don't know if you can hear me, son, but it's me, Uncle Danny. Uncle Danny? I hadn't seen him in nearly 5 years. He was my mother's youngest brother. Bit of a loner. Always smelled like gasoline and peppermint. Used to take me fishing when I was a kid and tell stories about alien abductions and lost time. Everyone in the family called him a drunk. A failure. But right now he sounded like an angel. I ain't good with this kind of thing, he mumbled, sitting down heavily. Hospitals give me the creeps. And your Aunt Brenda, God rest her, used to say I couldn't keep my mouth shut even in a church. He chuckled to himself. I wanted to weep. He was real. He was here. And more importantly, he was on my side. I heard what happened, he said, and I didn't believe it. You behind the wheel crashing into a tree at full speed? That's not like you. You drive like a grandpa on tranquilizers. Another pause. I could almost feel his eyes studying me. I knew something stunk, he whispered, so I started poking around. And guess what? No accident report ever reached insurance. No follow-up investigation. No photos filed. Everything just disappeared. My heart monitor didn't change, but my mind exploded. Someone had buried the paperwork. Then I heard from Janet, my neighbor's niece. She's a nurse here. She said your wife hasn't been crying during her visits. Said she's always checking the clock. Asking when Carson's stopping by. He took a long breath. Carson, he muttered. That name. Been hearing it too often. Then he stood. Walked to the window. She never deserved you, you know. Pretty on the outside, but cold in the eyes. I saw it the first time I met her. Like a cat pretending to be a house pet. He turned back to me, closer now. I don't know if you're ever waking up, but just in case. I felt his hand gently close over mine. I want you to know. Someone knows the truth. Someone's still got your back. Then, as he leaned in to whisper, the door creaked. Fast footsteps. Heels. Emily. Uncle Danny? She said, voice surprised. He turned slowly. Emily, what are you doing here? Visiting my nephew, he said bluntly. What's it look like? I imagined the cold tension in the air. Her fake smile. His suspicious stare. I didn't realize you two were so close, she said, sweetly fake. Danny didn't play along. I'm close with people who don't lie to me, he said. Pause. I think it's time you left, Emily said flatly. Danny chuckled. I was just leaving anyway. I got what I came for. He squeezed my hand. Twice. And left. Emily didn't speak. But I felt the temperature in the room drop. She moved to the foot of the bed. Stood there for a long time. When she finally did speak, her voice was low. Cold. Dead. You better stay asleep. Then she leaned closer. If you ever wake up, I'll kill what's left of you. She kissed my forehead and left like it was a perfectly normal thing to say. But it wasn't. It was a promise. And so was mine. I get out of this bed. I crawl out of this shell. And when I did, I wouldn't just wake up. I'd rise. The rain started around 3 a.m. A soft ticking against the hospital window. Familiar. Comforting. It reminded me of the night Emily and I danced in the garage, barefoot, soaked in cheap champagne. We were young then, dumb, laughing like the world couldn't touch us. But that was before she started sleeping with a man who only met me by reading my police report. Now the sound of the rain didn't soothe me. It summoned me, because something changed that night. Somewhere between the droplets outside and the beep of my heart monitor, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Heat. It was faint, like a spark beneath my ribs. A twitch in a toe I couldn't move. A flicker of awareness in my pinky finger. I focused on it. Hard. I listened harder. And then, just like a ghost creeping in on cat feet, I heard something strange. A voice I didn't recognize. A woman. Nurse, maybe. She was whispering on the phone near my bed. I don't know who he is, but that man who came to visit him? He's been asking questions all over the floor. Said he's family, but nobody verified anything. Big guy. Old boots. Smells like motor oil. Real attitude. Uncle Danny. My last thread to the world. She paused, then lowered her voice even more. No, I haven't told Mrs. Hamilton yet. Are you kidding me? The last nurse who made her mad ended up transferred. Yeah, that fast. My wife, Mrs. Emily Hamilton. She turned this hospital into her stage. Charming doctors, bribing nurses, arranging her mask just right. But Danny was different. He couldn't be silenced. He didn't want a payout. He wanted the truth. And outside this room, that truth was starting to leak. Danny sat in his rusted-out pickup outside a small diner with peeling paint and flickering neon. Inside, across the booth, sat a former mechanic named Victor. A guy who'd serviced my car 6 days before the crash. They were sharing a pot of black coffee, steam rising like secrets off the surface. I'm telling you, man, Victor said, sliding a dirty receipt across the table. The brake lines were intact when I handed it over. I even double-checked. Some woman called asking weird questions that same afternoon. Said she was your wife but didn't leave a name. Asked if the car had any vulnerabilities. Danny didn't blink. You got the number she called from? Victor hesitated. Maybe. I can check the log. Do that. Then Danny stood, dropped a 20 on the table, and walked out into the rain. The pieces were coming together now. The sabotage, the silence, the seduction. Emily hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd orchestrated the whole damn thing. Emily arrived the next day with a bouquet of sunflowers and a lie dressed as love. Hey, sweetheart, she said, sitting beside me, smoothing my sheet with her perfectly manicured fingers. You'd love this weather. It's pouring outside. Remember when we used to sit on the porch and count the thunder? I remembered, but I also remembered her words. I don't want you to wake up. She held my hand, forced a tear. They're doing a scan tomorrow, she said. A deeper one. If it shows too much damage, I don't know. They might suggest options. Options. That word had teeth. She leaned in and whispered, if it comes to that, I'll make the decision for you. Promise. My pulse jumped slightly, just slightly. Her head turned sharply toward the monitor. She stared for a moment, then smiled. Guess you're still in there, she whispered. But not for long. That night, as the rain hit the window like tapping fingers, something changed inside me. My middle finger twitched. Once, then again. Small, invisible, but real. And in the corner of the dark room, I almost heard a whisper. My own voice, inside my skull. I'm coming back. Somewhere between sleep and waking, I found myself drifting in a storm. Memories flickered like lightning behind my eyelids. Emily's laugh, my truck skidding sideways into the guardrail, her voice whispering, I wish you just died. But beneath all of it now, beneath the guilt and betrayal and beeping machines, something had begun to change. I was moving. A toe, a finger, a flicker of breath outside the ventilator rhythm. And Emily had noticed. She returned the next day with a different perfume. Sharper, more citrusy, like she wanted to cover her tracks. Or the stench of fear. She brought no flowers, no book, no soft kisses to my temple. Just tension. She sat beside me with her phone in hand and stared at me like she expected me to sit up and grab her wrist. Carson says he thinks someone's been following him, she muttered. He said your uncle cornered him yesterday, told him things, accused me of sabotage. She scoffed, but it wasn't genuine. There was a tremble in her breath. They're trying to ruin everything, she said. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And you, I think you're trying to come back." She stood, pacing. The chair scraped harshly against the floor. She didn't care about waking me anymore. She wanted to wake me, just to see how much I knew. "You're not going to ruin this, okay?" she said, half to me, half to herself. "You're not going to crawl back out of that bed and point fingers like some broken husband. You don't get to judge me." My monitor beeped, not louder, not faster. But she noticed anyway. She froze, stepped forward, looked at the machines. Her breath caught. "You moved," she whispered. Then the door opened. A nurse stepped in. Emily straightened quickly and plastered on her good wife smile. "Oh good, you're here," she chirped. "Can you check the 4-drip? He might be twitching." The nurse looked surprised but nodded. Emily slipped out of the room like a ghost disappearing through a wall. Across town, in the back lot of an old gym, Uncle Danny cornered Carson. It wasn't planned. He'd followed the detective for 2 days, seen him meet Emily twice in the same gas station parking lot. Once wearing sunglasses even though it was raining. Now he'd had enough. Carson was halfway to his car when Danny stepped in front of him. "You know who I am?" Danny asked, his voice low, calm, but dangerous. "Yeah," Carson said, stiffening. "You're the uncle." "That's right. And I know everything." Carson squinted. The brakes. The phone call to the mechanic. The weird insurance blackout. The nurse that Emily paid under the table to misplace the first CT scan. I even know she opened the garage door that morning and watched him drive off with the leak already dripping under the car. Carson's mouth twitched. "She said it was an accident." Danny stepped closer. "You know it wasn't. I'm not the enemy here." "Then what the hell are you?" Danny snapped. "You're sleeping with a woman whose husband is in a coma. And now you're protecting her because you think she loves you?" Carson looked away. "She told me she was breaking, that he was abusive, cold, distant." "Bull," Danny growled. "That boy loved her like she was the only woman on earth. He fixed her brakes, made her dinner, slept on the couch during her migraines. You think I didn't watch?" Carson flinched. Then finally, he whispered, "I think she's capable of more than she lets on." Danny leaned in close. "She's capable of murder. And if you don't help me now, she'll do it again. This time, she'll finish what she started." Carson looked shaken. Then, he nodded. "That night, I dreamed of a porch swing. It creaked in the wind, swaying slowly, the sky above dark with clouds. Emily sat beside me, but she wasn't smiling. She was whispering to someone in the shadows. She said, 'He's waking up. I can feel it.' And I responded, not in the dream but in real life. My eyelid twitched. A muscle in my jaw flexed. The nurse on night shift glanced up. She gasped. She pressed the call button. "Doctor, I think the patient just moved. His eyes, his mouth. Something's happening." And somewhere, deep inside me, I smiled. It was beginning. The rise, the return, the reckoning. Light, faint at first, like the sun shining through a crack in a boarded-up room. Then pressure, a weight behind my eyes, pins in my fingers, the ghost of a heartbeat I could feel for the first time, not just in the machines, but in me. And then came the sound. A voice, familiar, excited. His pupils just dilated. That wasn't Emily. That was the nurse. "Dr. Bennett, come now, I think he's responding." Footsteps, running, more voices. I couldn't make out words, just pulses of alarm and energy. The sound of gloves snapping on hands, clipboards being passed, monitors being adjusted. I was floating on the edge of the room, just behind my own eyes. And I was almost home. Then I heard it. The voice that made the temperature drop. "Emily, what's going on?" The nurse replied, "He's stabilizing. And I think he's waking up." A long pause. Silence stretched. Then Emily said something I'll never forget. "Is that good?" The doctor must have raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? It's remarkable." She fumbled. I just meant, what if he's brain damaged? Or confused? Will he even remember anything?" The nurse spoke gently. "Some patients remember everything. Others remember nothing. It varies." Emily didn't reply, but I heard her walk to the side of the bed. Heard her inhale slowly. And then, she whispered, low, right into my ear, "Please don't remember." Too late. I remembered everything. Uncle Danny and Carson sat in a dark diner booth again. But this time the mood had shifted. Carson had agreed to help. He'd made a copy of Emily's call log. He'd backed up the photos of the gas station meetings. And most importantly, he'd secretly installed a voice recorder in her purse the day before. What he captured: a conversation she'd had with her mother. In it, Emily said, "If he wakes up and starts asking questions, I'll do what I have to do. Sedation. Disconnection. Hell, I'll smother him with a pillow if I have to. He dies in his sleep. People will call it a blessing." Carson slid the recorder across the table to Danny. Danny looked at him with fire in his eyes. "You just earned your way out of hell, son." The next morning, the sunlight hit my face through the window. It hurt. It was beautiful. It was real. And as the doctors leaned over me and called my name, I managed something I hadn't done in months. I blinked. Once. Then twice. A nurse gasped, "Mr. Hamilton, can you hear me? If yes, blink twice." Blink. Blink. Cheers. Applause. Movement everywhere. And then, the door swung open. Emily stood frozen in the doorway. Her face paled, because when her eyes met mine, for the first time in nearly 3 months, she saw something she never expected. Recognition. I knew her. I remembered everything. The hospital staff didn't notice the way her hand gripped the edge of the doorway. They didn't see the way her knuckles whitened, or how her jaw clenched just slightly. But I did. I saw it. She smiled for the room, but behind her eyes, she was screaming, and I hadn't even spoken a word yet. They wheeled me into the rehab wing on a Friday. The nurses clapped. The doctors called it a miracle. My family, or what was left of them, gathered around me with forced smiles and carefully chosen words. But I didn't smile back. I remembered every word spoken over my still body. Every lie. Every whisper. Every plan made in the dark by people who once swore they loved me. And most of all, I remembered her. Emily. She stood at my side like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't plotted to bury me in silence. She fed me applesauce, fluffed my pillows, kissed my temple when the nurses were watching. But behind closed doors, we didn't speak. Not yet. I waited, because revenge, like recovery, requires patience. Carson came to see me wearing guilt like a tailored suit. He stood at the doorway of my room, hands in his pockets, face pale. "I'm sorry," he said. I didn't answer, just looked at him. "I gave Danny everything," he said. "The voice recordings, the timestamps, the surveillance. You can bury her." I smiled, not kindly, and he flinched. Then he leaned in. "You should know. She was going to kill you." I blinked. He nodded slowly. "You were waking up, and she told her mother that if you opened your mouth, she'd smother you in your sleep. I swear to God, I have the file." I reached for the notepad they'd left by my bedside and scribbled. "She already did. For 3 months." Carson swallowed, then turned to leave. "I hope you get your justice." I didn't answer, because I didn't want justice. I wanted Emily, cornered, crushed, exposed. I invited her to the hospital courtyard. Just me and her under fairy lights strung through a few half-dead trees. A nurse rolled my chair out. My hands were working again, though weakly. Emily sat across from me in a tight black dress, trying to look sorrowful but radiant. "You look good," she said. I didn't reply. She reached across the table and took my hand. "You don't have to talk," she said. "I just want to be here. I just want us back." I tilted my head and studied her, then whispered my first real sentence since waking. "I heard everything." She froze. "What?" "In the room," I said softly. "Every word you and your mother said. Every lie. Every moan with Carson. Every threat." Her hand pulled back slowly. "You're confused," she said. I shook my head. "You said you'd smother me. You said you wished I had died." Emily's jaw tightened. Then the mask cracked. "Fine," she said. "Yes, I was scared. You were never going to wake up. I didn't want to rot away waiting. I made a mistake. But I stayed. I stayed." I leaned forward. "You stayed." Until I twitched. Silence. Then I said, "But I've already forgiven you." She blinked. "What?" I smiled. "But I didn't say I forgot." She stood. "What the hell does that mean?" I reached under the table and tapped a small black box in my lap. It lit up green. Her purse, the one Carson gave her 2 weeks ago, began to beep faintly. She picked it up and unzipped it, and her face drained of color when she saw the recorder tucked beside her compact. "Too late. I gave that to the lawyer this morning," I said calmly, "along with Carson's files." and your mother's nursing payments, and the call logs to the mechanic. You can't prove anything. I can. I will. You'll ruin us. No, Emily, I said, finally standing with trembling legs. You ruined yourself. She lunged across the table, but two men appeared from behind the hedge. Uncle Danny and a private investigator from the insurance company. One held a recorder, the other, handcuffs. Emily Hamilton, the P.I. said. You're under investigation for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to obstruct a medical investigation. Emily screamed, but it didn't matter anymore. 1 month later, I walked on my own 2 legs into the same garage where Emily first seduced Carson. The couch was gone now. The house was empty, sold in the divorce. She'd signed the papers in handcuffs. Her mother disappeared to Florida. Carson moved west, to a city where no one knew his name. But I stayed, in the town where they tried to bury me, because I had nothing to be ashamed of. They did. They all did. And sometimes, when the rain hits the roof of my small rented cabin out on Highway 8, I sit in the dark and remember the silence. How I was trapped inside a broken body, and still outsmarted them all.